It is time to learn how to join the wefts. So we want all of the things that we weave to be together. We don't want any warp strings to just be showing through. We don't want any holes to be in our weaving tapestry. So we've got to make things come together. The most simple metaphor that I can give you is that of a zipper. When it's apart, there's a hole, right? We don't want any holes in our tapestry. We want to make sure to close that zipper or close the wefts together. Now there's two ways to go about this. You can do it as you go. So when I built this square, if I wanted a rectangle here, I could actually go in and combine the wefts as I'm weaving. If you're doing curves, that usually is what I do, is I just am joining the wefts as I go, as I'm building the curves. But if you have a lot of geometric designs, maybe you want to space them all out on your loom like I've done, and then go back and join the wefts together. So what you need to do is, just like always, start with your needle prepped, and then you're going to attach a string. So we're going to focus on this area right here. So I'm going to go ahead and already start wefting, if you will, joining wefting, and I'm going to put my string right here. So right in between this blue and this pink. I can actually move it out of the way if I need to, because remember, we can always manipulate yarn. So I kind of hid the beginning of my white yarn here, and I'm ready to start. So the only problem when you are joining wefts, when you're wefting, is that you might not be able to follow the under-over pattern exactly. Just try and do the best you can. It's okay if you don't. So basically my goal here is to go in between the rows that are already evident on here. So I'm starting between the blue and the pink, which means I'm going to go between the pink and the yellow. And then I'm going to come back. I'm going to go between the two blue rows that are right here, and then I'm going to go between two yellow rows. And I'm just going to try and keep it as nice and straight as you see my pink weave is here. And like we've mentioned, dropping strings and adding strings, you are naturally going to be doing that when you are joining two wefts together, because as you can see here, I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4 strings. And then I'm going to go back, and then the next one I'm going to go over 5 strings. So you're just going to keep going and growing your strings or shrinking your strings depending on what your design is. I'm going to go ahead and weave back and forth up to here. Now, one more thing. I'm going to use plain weave for this. You can do other types of weaving types. It is a little difficult because of the counts and things like that. But once you have really big areas like this area up here, that's when you could use a more complicated weave type. So if you notice, I'm actually, see how this yellow is looped around? I'm actually going in that yellow loop and then going through that warp string. And now this white string is going to capture that warp string as I make my way back. And then again, that's when you guys are now probably starting to see that woven texture that I mentioned with the geometric and organic shapes. You're going to see that happening a lot more, but we still know that this is a triangle. We still know that this is a square. It's just becoming woven together. So now that I've moved past my blue and my yellow shape, I can start going all the way to my green shape, and I can continue to get as much of the warp done. Obviously, you guys know by now you can start and stop on any string so that you can continue going. So I'm going to and then show you how it looks, how joining the wefts look. With curves, I'm going to show you what not to do when you are trying to join the wefts. So I want to make sure that this orange shape joins to this blue shape here. Here's what not to do. So the reason that this doesn't work, even if I was to smush this down, do you see how many holes are prevalent? If we were to actually take this off the loom, there would be big gaps that are happening. And that's because we built this so carefully, and we took away, took away, took away, took away, dropped a string, dropped a string, dropped a string, we have all these gaps, sort of like a mountain. So instead what you have to do is you kind of have to work with the gaps that are here. So let me undo this.
This technique can work on curves that are not steep, that are very gradual, and don't have very many hills.
Okay, so instead what I need to do is I need to work with what I did. So I know that from here to here, I'm missing one. From here to here, I'm missing 2 strings. So I kind of have to do the yin-yang, or the opposite of how I built this blue one is I'm adding a string every time. First I'm just weaving between 2 warp strings, then 3, then 4, then maybe I jump to 8, maybe I jump to 11. So again, this is especially where the curving is harder, because it's not some mathematical equation. It's something that is very much based on what you did and the tension that you pulled and things like that. So you're going to notice that every couple rows, I'm going to add strings on depending on where my part or my curve ends. And then you're going to also see me pushing down, creating that tension to match what I've done. Also, you'll see me making sure that I share warp strings. So for this first one, I'm going to go right in here and I'm going to share that string that the blue one is already on. And I'm going to do that the whole way throughout, just like I did on the geometric side. So again, you're going to have, even though it's a curve, it doesn't matter. It's still going to have that zigzaggy woven edge to it. So I'm sure some of you guys noticed I had a big old knot in my yarn. Instead of redoing my yarn, I know that it's not going to show up that much by the time that I weave around all these things. So I just pulled it as tight as I could, and I'm just going to continue to weave and see if it makes a big deal or not in my design. All right, I'm starting to run out of room in between here. So what's going to happen is you're going to see me gradually start to drop my strings as I get to this middle kind of high arch right here, because I can't fit any more strings into my weft. So again, why curves are so hard is because you really just have to respond to the way that they are placed and the way that they're manipulated, and you just kind of have to go with the flow. All right, so that's probably my final row, and then I've got to do a little bit of fixing. So I'm going to finish this off like I always do with a knot. Remember that knot. We'll move to the back. And then to make sure that my orange meets my white nicely, I can push my white up and I can push my orange down just to make sure that I have nice connections everywhere. And look at that. Only a little bit more and all my wefts will be joined. Whoop whoop. So as a reminder, you can do this as you go, or you can do it once you've built all your shapes and you can go back and do it. Whatever you feel more comfortable with. Good luck.